Hello, everyone. This is Dave, and I'm here with Matt Money and Scotto. Great to have you with this episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. So Vince was all set to host this week, and he had last-minute baby issues. So, we wish him and his newborn all the best. I don't think it's too serious, but he did have to run and take care of that. So it looks like for now, it will just be the three of us, unless Vince is able to hop back on later. Guys, thanks for joining and talking Rocket Lab with me.
Always good to see you guys.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I guess just how's your week been?
Pretty good. We have our own little newborn arriving in like 2 weeks, as early as 2 weeks, I guess. Probably end of the month is what we're looking at. So it's been a very, I don't know, kind of chaotic energy in the house, but it's a very good kind of chaotic energy.
That's your first, right?
That's our second. So we have a little girl, 2.5, and then it should be a big sister by the end of the month, hopefully.
That would be nice. There you guys. Do you guys know if it's are you choosing gender or not choosing gender, but are you
leaving a surprise? Yeah.
Surprise? Hell yes. I love that.
For the first one, like I was like, I don't want to know, absolutely not. But the second one, I'm curious to know, but I know that if I were to know immediately, I'd be like, I should have left tell the arrival. But I'm thinking it's a little boy, but my wife thinks it's a girl, so we'll see.
We'll see who's right. Dad's intuition, I don't know.
I guess usually most people try to or hope they end up with one of each, right? At least if you're only looking for two.
Yeah, we got our girl, so now I want a little boy to play Lego with.
Yeah. Very exciting.
Me, all-time highs in the portfolio still, so continue to look really good in that respect. And Rocket Lab's obviously been helping with that a bit, and we've had some other stocks in the portfolio at least recover. They're not at all-time highs or anything like that, but recovering. So in that respect, that all kind of moving in the right direction, but partly offset by Bitcoin retracing and a few other stocks kind of wavering as well. So overall, though, portfolio is looking good. Can't complain.
Yeah.
What about you, Dave?
Just from my point of view, and maybe this is a good time to share the screen. Yeah. Okay. So, oh no, that's not what we want. Sorry. Let me
Streamception.
This.
Stream within a stream within a stream.
When you're not prepared, everything is yeah. Okay, so okay. So this is the Rocket Lab stock. Obviously, it's had a good couple days, and I am a little frustrated because it seems like every time I think about, oh, now would be a cool time or a good time to make like a big trade on Rocket Lab and start like having an idea, making a plan. The stock seems to run up away from me before I get the chance, which is what was happening this past week. I had some thoughts of maybe making a call option play based on a few upcoming events, and stock ran away from us, partly based on, I think, what happened on Friday and what's happening between Trump and Elon and everyone trying to invest in SpaceX alternatives. So, a little frustrated by that. And then just in terms of my portfolio, not at all-time highs, but still pretty happy. Unfortunately, I still own some Tesla, and that did likewise take the big hit from the drama. No need to bury the lead here, and we're going to talk about all of it in more detail later on. But do you guys think this 9% move is justified in your opinion? Do you think we're going to head higher based on the drama that's been going on? Or is this really kind of not a big deal from Rocket Lab's point of view?
Maddie, do you want to start? I don't.
Sure, I can start.
About this one.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought that this range is a little high for, like, if you were to look at plain cut, what the company is churning out today, $28. I think when you're talking about what you're looking at here, which is $14-15 billion market cap, obviously that needs to have some sort of success of neutron embedded in it. And then I kind of always relate back to what SpaceX was worth. Obviously, we don't know. It wasn't publicly traded, but we can go based off of what approximate valuations based off of funding rounds and everything like that. It was rated about the same price as it is today, right around the Falcon 9. So we're talking like 2016, 2017 timeframe. It was, valued around $20 billion before it really started getting a massive cadence. Keeping in mind, yes, the Falcon 9 has been around for a lot longer time period, like than 2017, 2018. But the reusability really impacted it to be able to kind of kick the valuation. So anyway, I kind of look at it this way. There's that piece, kind of getting pre-neutron, and obviously the whole chatter about Elon and Donnie and what's going on with that, and people thinking that there's going to be a lot more decoupling of, or at least making sure that not all government contracts are potentially reliant on SpaceX, and maybe some of that money is going to go around. But to be fair, I feel like a lot of that money's gone around anyway. There's a lot of grant money that's been going to not only Rocket Lab, but many other companies as well. So in terms of if a lot of this was going to, let's say, the stock price and the 9% that we saw just for that, I feel like it's a little bit overhyped in that respect, because in reality, I mean, it's not like SpaceX has been the only game in town for getting government kind of contracting government work, but I think it might just be more retail visibility, if that makes sense. I don't think you've always had a group of people on X, and I'll stop here. You always had a group of people on X that are always like, who cares what Rocket Lab does? SpaceX is dominant, and no matter what you do, SpaceX is going to be the only space company, etc. So maybe those are the sorts of people to be like, oh shit, maybe they did a little bit of butt puckering and said maybe this is actually a good opportunity. If the government needs to kind of focus on other things, and I've actually heard a lot of conversations as of late being like, if Elon is going to be flying off the handle like this, I don't want to be involved in his companies. People, even though they see the value in the future of Tesla, etc., they want to decouple from that risk, because who wants to own a stock that just based off of a couple tweets in a single day, can really black swan your company to drop 15-20%.
I mean, I just went through it with Tesla. Yeah, not fun. It's hard to hold a company like that, for sure.
I'm in the same boat as you, Dave, where it's like, it's nice to see what Rocket Lab's doing, but then you see Tesla and you're like, oh, it's kind of net neutral in the end. So yeah, I don't know. It's Matt, you raised a lot of great points about, I don't know, the Elon's temperament, I guess. And I think, a lot of credibility to what you're saying, of course, in that, like, the people who are saying, SpaceX forever are in, like, Rocket Lab, there's no way that they'll ever catch up, are kind of like, oh shoot, there is an alternative. But then the other side to that has me wondering, like, if there are enough holes that are poked in SpaceX, does that kind of lose enthusiasm for the overall market? Like, realistically, no, but it's just I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe concerning to see how nasty things could get over the next few weeks if they keep acting like this, but time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's been a few signs that things may be calming down. But let's get to the news. Let me see if I can share this properly. Okay. Full disclosure to everyone else watching. Obviously, I wasn't planning to host today's Rocket Lab Weekly. So a lot of these things we're talking about, I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare talking about them. So yeah, we'll see how it goes here. Vince prepared the news items for today, and we're just going to go over them. Starting off with the launch infrastructure. Looks like it's coming together, starting to look like the CGI image. Any thoughts on that, guys?
One step closer. I think that as we're kind of starting to see stuff coming out of the ground now, we talked about it in the past, where it's like there's that such long period of, like, kind of laying the ground, laying all the concrete, and it's really like nothing's happening, and then suddenly, kind of like any building or any house, it's like suddenly everything just kind of seems to shoot up overnight. I think that's what we're seeing, and it seems like 2025 launch is more credible every day.
Yeah, for me, firstly, thank you, Dougie, for the 5 members. Appreciated that, my friend. And this is a gentleman that also launches rockets in his free time as well. So if anybody you're in Texas and you want to go see a rocket launch, just let me know, and I'll see if I can hook you up with Dougie. For me, I thought it was interesting. The rocket launch that we saw with Black Sky, they previewed again the water testing at Wallops. So once again, astonishing that we have water. Nobody thought it was possible, but here we are. But yeah, it's interesting to see it really start to come together. And I thought it was interesting. I was also curious about this, but I'm happy others brought it up too. That cool tunnel that you see on the like the CGI animation. I'm curious if we're going to end up getting something like that as well. But I don't know. It would be really cool to kind of see all of it kind of directed. But at the same time, not everybody has those cool tunnels, and it is kind of like fun to see the plumes going up around the rocket itself as well. But really excited. We're inching closer. There's so many different things that are happening in series, and I feel like once LC3 gets kind of like that big check mark, it's only a matter of time before we see the next check mark. And really, I think I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to start to see more and more of these milestones checked off within the next 2 to 3 months. And I think that the second quarter earnings call will be very fun. But maybe that's me being an optimist.
By the way, it looks like you got 1 Rocket Lab share for the new baby, Scott. So very generous,
nice.
Curtis.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, personally, I was thinking with that, tunnel over the flame trench, they probably don't need it for the first launch, so I wouldn't be worried about it not being there. But yeah, maybe I think Mont mentioned they kind of have a diagram floating around out there of different phases, like 1, 2, and 3. 1 being just what you need for a first quick launch, and then 2 and 3 for like good to haves and more infrastructure down the line. So maybe we could see that in like phase 3. But yeah, things are really coming together with the tanks. I don't know if we see a stage 2 test stand there. I've been wondering about that, but maybe they test out that first stage 2 in New Zealand and bring the entire thing over. I don't know. Anything you're seeing there, Scott? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Just anything jump out to you from the image?
The lightning rods, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. I'm sorry, I'm half paying attention. Somebody's DMing me about something bad. My bad.
Okay. Yeah.
Some say it goes down the DMs. Yeah. But the size of the tanks is pretty interesting as well. Like I have a strong feeling that those tanks themselves is going to be almost as big as the rocket will end up being. I mean, you can kind of see the CGI image of what those tanks look like, and then comparatively to the rocket, I mean, those tanks are way bigger than I was expecting, and it's evident when you saw like Maddie actually go on site and she was able to stand next to those tanks, is how large they are. And so it's interesting, and I always think about like when I look at that water tower, I'm always like, oh, that thing like looks really small and skinny, but in reality, if you think about it, I mean, it's a pretty big tank, and really it's there to provide hydrostatic pressure, right? Because obviously it needs to be high up in the air to be able to provide the pressure for the water to kind of come down. Anyway, so maybe a different story for a different day, but yeah, I always think about how tiny that looks, but in reality, it's a very large tank.
Yeah, can be a little deceiving when you're so zoomed out. Yeah, Curtis did make a good point that I think it was in the launch coverage we had senior Rocket Lab officials saying that they're looking on track to open the launch site this summer, which I think is, bodes very well. Let's move on to the next piece, which is news that next up on the pad for Rocket Lab is The Mountain of the Gods, no earlier than June 10th from Launch Complex 1, and it will be a QPS satellite. So I assume you had this on your radar, Scott, and it was in your tracking sheet?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's cool to see this is the 4th launch with IQPS. I think it's the 3rd of 8. And I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago now that I brought up a translated article from IQPS that was kind of going over the upcoming schedule because there was a bit of a discrepancy, kind of with what Rocket Lab said compared to what the announcement outline stated. So there is a bit of just a little bit of uncertainty, but it does look like we're still on track for that document that was shared with the. This would be the second in a group of three, the second in a group of 3. So they're coming along nicely, and I am still curious if all the ones that were previously stated are going to land within this year, or how exactly that's going to be moved around. But that'll be interesting to find out.
Yeah, and Fool's Gold, always generous. One of our big supporters. Hope you are enjoying your travels, my friend. Yeah. So, how you think we're looking for the quarter, guys, on launches?
I was under the impression that we were going to hit 5, but now I'm a little less certain. So we have the 2 so far, and then the one coming up in 3 days, I guess. 2 days, 3 days. And then I'm not sure about Hawkeye or Capella, but last I heard is those were supposed to also be in June. But those updates are fairly outdated. So whether they'll still land in June or not is TBD, but it would be cool to get those in as well, and at least have the 4 in the quarter.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Scott. Were you done?
I was just correcting myself. 5 within the quarter, I meant to say.
Oh, okay. That much more comfortable with that number.
Yeah. Oh, you still think we'll hit 5? Or you said you don't think we'll hit 5? Sorry.
I don't know. We're kind of. I'm more leaning towards 4 at this point.
Yeah, because this will be the 3rd. Yeah, so I really gives us 21 days. Although, let me just pull. If we're actually able to knock this one off, we have been actually having a pretty good cadence since we got the first launch for the quarter. So, where is my Electron launch cadence? So, if we are actually able to get this one off on the 10th, then we might have a fighting chance for 5. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be pretty tough. Let's see, 6, 10, 20, 25. That'll be 7 days between launches. We average about, at the moment, for the last 5, we've averaged about 17 days between launches. So just that alone might mean you get the 4th one in, but it really depends. Like, are you actually able to get 2 launches in within 21 days? 20 days, actually? That's a lot. So that's 10 days a piece, or maybe another quick one where they do one from New Zealand and they do one from like a haste or something like that from Wallops within 24 hours or something like that. But not impossible, but I'm with you. I think it's tough.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be looking for a bit of an acceleration in Q3 and 4. But it's nice to see this one's coming up soon.
I also see a comment. There has been a rumor, I think it was for the 5th through the 7th, that there might be a haste launch, but I don't think that's. I think it's one of those situations where there's like a sounding rocket coming out of Wallops, and we were optimistic to point towards haste, but I don't think that's what's happening.
Brett, also being generous as well, Scott.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, your newborn's going to have several Rocket Lab shares going for them already, I guess.
For sure.
And speaking of you, it looks like Vince had your tweet queued up here about some Form 4s for insider selling. So why don't you take us through what was going on here?
These were all. I think there was 5 or 6 different blocks that were sold over the past week, and all of which are either the like tax coverings or pre-planned sales. So this is kind of like just kind of like a nothing burger. But on the other hand, as well, if you do look at, I think it's Adam Spice's kind of in particular, you'll notice that he's down to like 60, give or take 60% of the shares that he used to have. So these little 5% sales are starting to add up over time. But I'm also willing to bet that, we'll probably see the Neutron launch, maybe a couple, maybe a few, and you'll probably be back in negotiations for sort of like compensation packages for these guys. Kind of similar to what we saw with Peter, I think it was at the end of last year, where there's like a new compensation plan rolled out. I'd be willing to bet that we get something similar with Adam as well, among the other executives and maybe some directors as well. But yeah, those little sales, they start to add up over time. But all in all, this past week was kind of par for the course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so not a huge deal, especially when it's selling to cover. Although we've gone over it before. Obviously, Frank, impeccable timing on when he came aboard and received his shares. So hopefully he's hard at work in the background there, earning those. Next, we do have, it looks like the Black Sky payload confirmed. So I guess we're just getting the animation here, but I think a lot of us did watch that launch. Did you guys get a chance to check it out?
Yeah. This was the second launch for Q2, the 7th for 2025, 65th overall, the 10th between Black Sky and Rocket Lab, and the second of 5 in the contract. One thing that stuck out to me during the stream is there was a mention that they'll be launching with Black Sky this year and next. The reason that stuck out is I've been really kind of hung on to that. Black Sky is planning to have 6 of these Gen 3 satellites launched by the end of this year. The one that just happened this past week, that was the second of 6. So 6 are planned by the end of this year. I think it's 8 are planned by the end of Q1 2026. But all this to say is we're going to run out of launches, I guess, by the end of the year. So with Rocket Lab saying that they're planning to launch this year and next with Black Sky, that leads me to believe that either Black Sky does have another launch agreement that's going to pad out the full year, or maybe there's another launch agreement in the works. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe any day, or maybe they'll save it for next earnings. Maybe we do get another block of ideally 5, maybe more Black Sky launches looking forward. But their contract is kind of starting to run out over the next 6 months, we'll call it, and it'd be nice to see the partnership continue.
Yeah, I mean, they've been one of Rocket Lab's most reliable customers, so you wouldn't want to see that come to an end.
That actually, yeah, it's a good point. I mean, 10 out of 65, it's a pretty good rate. I'm actually curious. Do you know of anybody else that's done more launches than 10, Scott? I actually
Black Sky. I think second to that is Synspective.
Synspective's pretty recent, yeah.
Yeah, I thought Black Sky was number 1.
Oh yeah, Synspective's only at 6. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we had the interesting news. Basically, I don't follow the U.S. political process super closely, but there's a budget reconciliation bill going through, and I guess it goes to the Senate, and they make some recommended changes. And while the budget basically had axed Mars sample return, this proposal from Ted Cruz and the Senate did include $700 million in funding for the Mars sample return, specifically the telecommunications orbiter piece, which is the satellite that would go and facilitate communications with the ground operations and just continue to provide service around Mars. The thing that I found really interesting is if you dive into the actual text, it sounds like it's basically exactly what Rocket Lab proposed in their MSR proposal. And a lot of other architectures didn't really have this exact, orbiter. So it seems like a direct call out to Rocket Lab specifically. I assume they would still have to bid for it if this did go through in the budget. But I thought it was really interesting. And did you guys have any thoughts on that one?
I don't know what my thoughts are on the return sample anymore. Like I think we all listened to that Jared Isaacman interview, and
Yeah,
it kind of sounds like he's more in favor of like human pickup. That's what I understood, anyways. Which is
but he's kind of out of the picture now, right?
right. But like when and maybe it was just talk, but previously I thought he was kind of the one that was like championing the idea of Rocket Lab doing the mission. So I don't know. Like there's so much that's happened this past week, and it's like we know what we know, but I feel like we also I don't know. It seems like there's something much deeper going on, and I don't know. A lot isn't making sense. So
Mm.
I don't know. Cool if
Building
it
on
comes to fruition. I don't know. We'll see.
sorry. Building on what you said though, with like the Isaacman interview, like when I saw Ted Cruz kind of spearheading this and making sure that Mars was still in the picture, and even though with the ongoing NASA budget being cut, by 50% pretty much from what was it like down to 19 million, which was previously like 30 something million in the last year. And somebody can correct me on the numbers because they're not 100% on the top of my head, but one of the key things that Isaacman did talk about and then all in podcast was specifically around how each state kind of has their own initiatives when it comes to space, because they have their own employees and like high paid, high tech sort of people that they need to kind of keep employed and busy, right? So when you think about it from that perspective, it's like there is these budget cuts that go around, but at the end of the day, like you can't just like on a whim be hiring and firing these high tech individuals. Otherwise, they'll unfortunately leave that particular industry. And so I was kind of thinking like, oh, is this Ted Cruz's sort of initiative to keep some of those people, even though they might not necessarily be part of the Mars sample return or what have you? Space has been a huge part of Texas, obviously. I mean, I go to the Johnson Space Center all the time when somebody new comes to visit me. It's, a 50-minute drive from where I live. And it's really cool to be able to see the Saturn V and everything like that. So in that respect, like, is this, Ted being like, look, we have so many other people, Firefly, we have Blue Origin kind of out here in West Texas. We have all these folks kind of centralizing. We need to have this sort of telecommunications orbiter being built within the state of Texas, right? And that's a key thing for us, regardless of whether or not you think that it should be done by NASA. It's one of those things that he wants to make sure is on his agenda.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm happy that this is back. Some things that kind of confused me and I thought was interesting is I remember when Jared was going through the confirmation hearings, I think it was, there was some big news about Ted Cruz asking a question and specifically calling out Rocket Lab as well. It was something along the lines of, would you consider like fully commercial alternatives for Mars sample return? And like Rocket Lab's proposal. So Ted Cruz, very influential senator. I don't think Rocket Lab has employees in Texas or which I think is his state. So, why is he on Team Rocket Lab now, or is he? It seems like we have two instances now where he's kind of gone to bat for them a little bit, which I think bodes well. And Rocket Lab's getting to the stage where they need to lobby and stuff like that and deal with government. So maybe that's a good sign. But yeah, hopefully we don't just have our hearts breaking again on this Mars sample return.
And if they're looking for, the first employee in Texas, hopefully my employer isn't listening, but my hand may or may not be raised if they need employees in Texas. So.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what we have next. Okay. So yeah, I did see this one as well. Basically, further to the talk about that orbiter, Eric Berger tweeted out saying that he's heard Rocket Lab and Lockheed actually wanted to partner up to win this contract. And when I read that, I was a little surprised and confused. But then Peter Beck replies and just says, nope. So yeah, him refuting that. And I don't think he's saying, no, they're not interested, because clearly they already proposed the architecture, including this. But I guess they would want all 700 million and to do it, as the prime themselves. Mm-hmm. Did you guys see that one?
I did. And then Eric followed up saying like, Did you see the follow up, Dave?
Matt's getting a lot shorter here. Sorry, I'm just. Oh, okay. Playing a magic trick on us. Yeah, I did. Yeah. So, well, I can tell you, I've heard it for sure. Whether it's true or not, I guess we'll see. I think that's a bit of an odd response. Like, I believe Eric did hear it from a reliable source, but obviously Peter's the guy to know. So I'm not sure why even we'll see would be like. I think if Peter says nope, it's nope. So like, why would it be why you see? I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's unusual. I'm not sure what to think of that.
Yeah. So I mean, I did hear it part I buy, and maybe there's some, talks, or maybe Lockheed asked Rocket Lab if they'd be interested, or maybe something. But to me, that seemed pretty definitive and pretty positive. So yeah, another good piece of news for Rocket Lab. It's funny though, I don't really think that moved the stock so much as the whole Trump Elon feud, but it's hard because it's all happening at the same time. Do you guys have any thoughts on like which one is this piece of news moving the stock, or is it all just due to the Trump Musk stuff?
I think the latter. Yeah, definitely the latter.
Okay. You as well, Matt?
I don't know what to think anymore. I also, I'm still curious if that was I don't know. I don't know what to think.
Okay. Next up, I guess we have Voyager Technologies is going IPO. We've been hearing this is coming for a while now, so I don't know if you guys have followed it, but they're basically working on a commercial space station. Actually, interestingly enough, Peter did kind of highlight commercial space stations in one of his interviews as a potential interesting area in the future of space. I think not necessarily for Rocket Lab specifically, but this implies a valuation of around 1.6 billion. I assume they don't really have much in the way of income at this point. Do you guys have any thoughts on this one? Would you be investors? What do you think?
Like, I don't know Voyager super well, but I follow Redwire very closely, and I've been seeing a lot of comparisons between the two. In that they're both like what are they called, roll up companies? Like they go out, acquire companies to build towards a larger platform, if you will. So of course right away I wanted to do like the side by side comparison, and of course there's more to it than revenue, but their Voyager is bringing in like 138 million in revenue estimated.
Oh, that's good.
But that would be like a price of sales of 11.6, so that's like 3 times the valuation of Redwire. And yeah, granted, we don't know what margins look like or anything past that, but that's just one touch point that I was like, okay, like maybe, for those considering investing in Voyager right away, maybe wait till the full picture's out there before jumping on board, like kind of proceed with caution is my non-advice.
That I have the same sort of thought. I would want to see the S1, and I would kind of want to know what kind of financial footing they have, how far along are they in terms of, because I know literally nothing about the next space station and really what they're going to be trying to implement and the undertaking of that. Because my biggest fear is they don't have the revenue. They'll have to get a lot of funding, whether that is dilutive funding or space funding from NASA or something of the like. That might end up meaning that your initial shares get massively diluted. And while you think you're getting a good ownership position, it gets diluted by 3-4 times. The next thing the stock price does actually go up to the market cap that you eventually think it could. But because now there's 3 to 4 times the amount of shares outstanding, your returns aren't necessarily nearly as what you thought they would have been. So I'm with you. It's like, I would want to wait until I see some sort of, and I'm not saying it needs to be profitable by any means, right? But I want to see some sort of trajectory towards it actually being something that stands on its own 2 feet, which is the same reason why I don't invest in all space stocks, right? I want to see them be able to stand on their own 2 feet. I had a lot of people be like pushing, Velo 3D on me, and a lot of these other auxiliary companies are like, there's no way this company can go out of business. Well, lo and behold, right? So I'm not saying stay away from it. I'm just saying for me, I would personally be waiting until an S1 is available for me to kind of comb through and truly understand, where they are in their cycle.
Yeah, I think for myself, it's an interesting company. I think commercial space stations are going to be interesting in a few years, obviously. But I think you also know I tend to stay away from new IPOs for at least a year. And that's just something I found. They often go up and then go way down. Even if you think it's a great company, I tend to wait it out a bit. But that's me personally. Okay, so next we did have, I guess we kind of covered this already a little bit, but Trump saying that he would have won Pennsylvania regardless of Elon, and he's disappointed with Elon, and he knew the bill better than anyone, where I think Elon was saying he didn't find out what was in it until later. And just, I guess, more of this drama that I'm sure everyone watching is already very familiar with right now. So any comments on that?
I am a little bit curious as well, how it's surprising, and this is kind of why I'm like, there's no way that it's strictly about this. It has to probably be about other things as well. Is because there was an interview with not Brett Baer, maybe it was Brett Baer, a couple months back, right? And so we're talking still probably the April timeframe, maybe even March, where they were talking about how the EV mandate was going away, and Elon was literally right there with Trump, during this interview. And so Elon was kind of quiet during that piece, so maybe he was biting his tongue. But at the end of the day, it's not a surprise. So why would it have taken how long? Maybe he obviously recognized that when you're working under the administration, how you kind of have to bite your tongue because you're at the service of the president. And I actually just watched regardless of whether or not you like Theo Von or not, he had a really good interview or podcast with JD Vance, and he's going to have another one with Tim Waltz apparently in the coming months as well. But they basically talked about regardless of whether or not you disagree, once the president makes a decision, you kind of have to stick with it, right? If he asks your opinion, you have to give it, and you have to kind of stand your ground. But once he's just okay, I disagree, we're going with this, you kind of have to stick with it. So I get it. Maybe Elon may not have been in favor of that, but at the end of the day, if you're being in service of the president, you kind of have to help support him in any way, shape, or form. Do you have to agree with it? No, but it's kind of like the military, right? You can give your thoughts, your opinions, but if your general says you have to do this, then you kind of have to do this.
Yeah, I do think I agree with Space Ghost here that threatening to just decommission Dragon is quite wild for the CEO of the company to be doing on Twitter.
Agreed.
Yeah, that was a little, not as measured as I would like to see if I was invested in that company. And I know a lot of people out there did manage to get shares, even though SpaceX is still privately traded. So there is that. And then all this stuff about the Epstein, there's so much confusing stuff to me about this whole thing. For example, if Elon knew that Trump theoretically or whatever was involved with that, why would he have supported him for president and all this? So I don't really know what to believe about any of this right now, but I just think you shouldn't have a CEO and president engaging on online Twitter fights and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think it could improve Rocket Lab's chances to get a bigger piece of Golden Dome contracts potentially?
I think so. I'm already kind of in the camp, with everything that Rocket Lab's been acquiring and building towards, it seems like, I don't know, maybe it's just they're being strategic and kind of crossing their fingers, but it's kind of like the Sinclair acquisition where they acquire it and suddenly and they're like, oh, we're 10xing our production. And it's well, why would you do okay, cool. And then you find out later it's for a customer. And it's kind of I'm almost wondering if, maybe they're approached by kind of Geost Mynaric kind of combined. I mean, especially Mynaric, right? But almost with the intent of hey, we have this opportunity, but we can't do this ourselves. So if you want to partner up and we could go that route, that's kind of what I'm thinking more for Golden Dome. But this certainly, Yeah, this past week has certainly done SpaceX no favors, and it's probably benefits Rocket Lab in a huge way, especially with the timing, with the kind of time crunch to get everything in order, and just how you know emotional everybody is going to be in the direction of Elon. Like it's kind
Yeah.
of a great storm for Rocket Lab investors, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think Curtis is right. When Glenn Shotwell saw that, she was probably pissed. I
Hmm.
think, SpaceX was working on a joint venture proposal with Anduril and Palantir for Golden Dome. And when they saw this, they were probably a little pissed too. Like, there goes our shot for that. Yeah, it's wild times we're living in here, I guess.
I think my thought process around it is like, I don't think that Rocket Lab's chances have increased. I think Rocket Lab has always been part of the conversation. I think it's maybe just the perception from retail that has really started to pivot, because people are thinking that, oh, reliance, with SpaceX has to diminish. But I think you guys are right. Like, the acquisitions have truly put them in the forefront of, the capability to be a part of this contract. Keep in mind, by no means is Rocket Lab going to have the whole contract, right? There has to be split amongst so many different parties, just like the SDA tranches, right? I mean, all that has to be split and kind of, separated into so many different contracts, because not everybody can handle the manufacturing for all $185 billion worth of stuff, right? Maybe the only person that could do that is, I don't think even SpaceX could do that on their own. They only are a 15 to $20 billion revenue company. So to be able to take on that with getting things out within 3 years, I think is an impossible task. So I think people need to think of it more like an SDA contract. Granted, the kind of like the protection layer, tracking layer, transportation layer, etc. I think people need to think of it more like that, where there's going to be many, many parties involved. And so I think it's inevitable that Rocket Lab gets some piece of it, in my opinion. And I think it's just a realization that for some reason people thought Anduril, Palantir, SpaceX, they're going to get all 185 billion. And I think with the workings that have happened with the Elon Donnie fallout, people are like, oh, maybe not. Maybe it will be split up or reduced. And I think it's more of the retail public perception.
Hmm.
Certainly put Rocket Lab on the radar for a lot more people, I think, and we're going to get to a few more articles about that. So we have this tweet from the Washington Post saying officials at NASA and the Pentagon are urging SpaceX competitors to quickly develop alternative rockets and spacecraft after President Trump threatened to cancel SpaceX's contracts and that, threat of decommissioning Dragon. I read this and I just laughed, and I just thought to myself, nobody quickly develops a rocket. Like, you don't just say, oh, there's need for a rocket. I'll get this going in a year or whatever. It just doesn't happen. But yeah, clearly, I guess there is some demand for alternatives to just SpaceX.
Hmm. And to kind of add to that, I don't have a source, but it doesn't seem unlikely. But allegedly, since Thursday's exchange, the one between Elon and Musk, Elon and Trump, at least 3 commercial space companies, Rocket Lab, Stoke Space, and Blue Origin, have been contacted by the government officials about the status of their rockets and when they might be available for government missions.
Yeah,
So
that is
that's cool.
actually from this article, I believe. But you know what? We can jump to it right now as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so NASA, Pentagon, or was it the Wall Street Journal? Sorry, this is Washington Post, but I did see that one. It was from a Wall Street Journal article as well. I guess I don't have that one queued up, but yeah, that was interesting as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
do you?
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, I mean, if you had Isaacman involved, he mentioned it multiple times in the All In podcast, specifically Rocket Lab. He mentioned it on 2 separate occasions. And so I think having somebody like him would have helped. And so it's interesting that like you kind of come full circle where you might have pushed him out, which was partly probably because of Elon and what was kind of going on. And I think that probably was due to the fact of like an advisor. So it was probably like an advisor saying, you know what, we need to decouple ourselves from Elon a little bit. And I think that was probably part of the whole issue ongoing. It was just like, I don't think it was Trump's thought. There were some things that he was saying, but I think it was probably an advisor within his cabinet that said, you know what, Elon's did a great job with Doge, etc. He's done what he needed to do as an advisor for the majority of the part. He did what he accomplished or wanted to accomplish. Like, maybe it's time to decouple. And maybe that was Elon kind of putting fire or pouring gasoline on the fire, being like, you know what, I was hoping to be an advisor long term. And unfortunately, because you're removing Isaacman, you're putting all these other things that aren't necessarily going my favor. I think he hit a breaking point, just being what happened with him, entering politics in general, people bombing his stores pretty much, letting them on fire, having all the Democrats selling their Teslas, after they were supporting him for so long. I think it's just interesting in that respect. And it's interesting that we've come full circle to end up, even though Isaacman was pushing for Rocket Lab to be a huge proponent of the future of NASA and the missions ongoing, we've come full circle anyway to potentially utilizing them without Isaacman in general, which I think is a positive, because I think a lot of people were kind of like, well, what does that mean for Rocket Lab when Isaacman was kind of removed? And just a week later, here we are kind of potentially pushing for Rocket Lab to be involved anyway.
Yeah. Do you think this will mean an acceleration or more demand for Neutron, or is there potentially more demand for Rocket Lab to develop a capsule?
I would say yes. Yeah. Like, I think it was inevitable. And I think even like the uptick in cadence, I think that's inevitable as well. Because previously it was 135, and then it was like 1, and then 3 or more, and 5 and more, or 5 or more. And it just seems like, of course, there's going to be the bottlenecks and whatnot, but there's definitely going to be no shortage of demand. And it's like, it just seems like, in the now years that we've covered Rocket Lab, it's like, it just seems like no matter which domino falls, it kind of lands in Rocket Lab's favor. It just, like, there was no demand issue before, and it just event after event, and it just seems like there's more and more of that that need for launch that Rocket Lab's going to fulfill.
Do you have thoughts, Dave?
Sorry, I was doing some admin stuff in the background.
I have thoughts if you want me to go.
I would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so yeah, everybody's been poking around on this one. If you look at I think it's the 2023 or 2022 Investor Day presentation with Rocket Lab on slide like 27 or 28, it's not a capsule announcement. I remember asking the first opportunity that I could with all 4 of us in the room, of course, in the second quarter of last year, when I think it was like our second interview or something like that with Pete and Adam. I asked him straight up, like, what's the deal? And the thought process is Neutron is human space capable. And they made sure that, hey, if we're going to spend all this money, we might as well just tick that box to be able to say, yes, you meet the potential requirements. Now, of course, you still have to go through a lot of the testing pieces of it, etc. And so in that respect, I think Rocket Lab could and will be asked. But my hope is Rocket Lab, they are very hyper focused on certain things at once, right? It's why, to Scott's dismay, they're not working on reusability for the Electron right now, right? So, sorry, Scott, to bring it up. I know it hurts you, but
yeah.
But it's like, at the same time, it's like I just hope that if they're asked to displace something to focus on a capsule, that it's worthwhile. And because at the moment, the reason why, if it was worthwhile, Rocket Lab would already be doing it, right? I think it's very evident that Rocket Lab sees where the dollars are and where they think they can make a margin, and they don't see it at that point. So it either is going to have to be subsidized to an extent, or made worth their while. And maybe it's a loss leading project. We talk about that a lot in the oil industry, where it's like you take something on to open up something else, like entry into a new country, or entry to new basins where you could find and explore for additional oil, etc. Maybe it's that sort of opportunity where it's like, hey, if you do this for us, we'll give you an opportunity to get more of the Artemis contracts, or this, that, or the other, which could, in theory, long term, demonstrate lots of profitability. So it could be a loss leading project in that respect that opens up more business in the future. And if that's the case, I'll leave it to Adam and Pete, who are way better at this stuff, more on the ground, obviously, to make that decision. But I'm just kind of curious what ends up happening with that. But it was nice to see Pete answer that up front, like, hey, Neutron's capable. We just obviously don't have the capsule made at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, Space Ghost making a good point that it's certainly very capital intensive to develop a capsule. And I'm sure it would be for Rocket Lab as well. But, we have Voyager coming out of IPO and a few other private space station companies. Maybe there'll be more demand for something like that in the future. So this was the quote, I think, that everyone was kind of raising their eyebrows at. Since Thursday's exchange, at least 3 commercial space companies, Rocket Lab, Stoke, have been contacted by government officials for when they might be available for government missions. So that was pretty interesting. Even Stoke being in there as well. They're a little bit further away too.
Do you know if they're still planning to launch this year?
They must have what is considered to be a credible path to launch because they got added to the NSSL program. But to me, it looks like it'd be a stretch.
That'd be cool to see, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. What do we have next? Okay. Apparently, we have an interesting milestone from SpaceX that commercial revenue from space for them is going to exceed the entire budget of NASA next year. SpaceX revenue will be 15.5 billion, and NASA's, of which NASA is only 1.1 billion. So I guess he's just kind of highlighting as well. Sorry, this is my first time reading this tweet because Vince had it queued up for us. But I guess he's also highlighting that NASA's not a super high percentage of their revenue.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Any thoughts there,
Interesting
guys?
touch point. I'm not sure what to do with it, but it's interesting to see.
I guess it's a sign that commercial space is certainly growing, and it's more than just NASA. Okay, that was pretty much it for all the news items I had. So back to you guys. Any thoughts from this week? Are you going to be making any trades, changing how you're thinking about Rocket Lab going forward at all?
No, I guess for the upcoming week, I'm kind of more looking towards that the Redwire vote is on Monday for them to acquire Edge. I mean, it's basically given. It's like it's going to go through, but I'm just interested I'm interested to see the final share count following the acquisition with all the dilution and whatnot, and just curious to see how this stock's going to react as a result. Could cause a lot of turbulence really in either direction. So that's what's on my radar. And then of course the upcoming launch. What about you guys?
Overall, I'd say it's pretty bullish for Rocket Lab. Not how I like it to happen, but I do think this will push a little bit less, reliance on SpaceX, which was already there. People were wanting multiple providers. We saw it with SDA and stuff like that. But feeling really good about them. And I think we do have some potential catalysts coming up, whether it's this Mars orbiter, if that gets through, whether we're talking about the Tranche 3 tracking layer coming up. I think Rocket Lab probably has some other irons in the fire when it comes to big contracts they're going after, at least from what we've heard Peter say in various interviews on both the government and commercial side. So there could be other surprises. Obviously, the biggest potential catalyst of them all, I think, is a Neutron launch, and I'm still feeling pretty good about that for this year. The one thing I'd like to see more about is get more data on Archimedes and how that's going. But yeah, other than that, I think it's looking pretty good. How about you, Maddie?
Just interesting to see that my chat has become a dating channel, but it is what it is. So anyway, I'm in a holding pattern, like you said, until Neutron, and I'm curious to see what news kind of comes out with that. Full confidence in Pete, full confidence in Adam. I'm trying to decide. I mean, I have been adding money every month, twice a month, And for some reason, I put it on pause a week or so ago, and I'm kind of wondering if I should re-implement it. I think once I hit like 25, 26, I was like, actually this week I want to reallocate that couple $100 to over here, and I did that, and that stock has also moved. So I don't know. I think
it's a good number of shares.
Yeah, I do have a good number of shares already, so I'm kind of just sitting there. But at the same time, I know I'll regret if Rocket Lab goes to where I think it's going to go that I don't have more. So there's that piece. And I guess for anybody that follows, I do. Generally speaking, when we get to the Fridays, I look for easy covered calls. I don't sell week-long covered calls out in case you have news like this that comes out that might skyrocket the price very quickly. But I did sell the $31 covered calls yesterday, like at 10 a.m. So got a couple pennies for that. And so the hope was, capture a couple $100, be able to buy more shares, etc., with lower risk. My fear is that if I write it a week or so out, you could have some massive news, right? Like some of the dynamic testing for stage 1 or stage 2, or, the regulatory approval to fly Neutron comes out. Next thing you know, you get a check mark and they come out with September or October as a launch date. And next thing you know, you're like, shit, you're underwater fighting that thing. So my hope is being as more cautious as I can. And I know that's being greedy because I feel like it's going to blow up in my face at some point, but I try to remove as long as I can from writing those covered calls. But overall, I think I'm teetering on whether or not I keep investing. At this price, I have a very decent position. It's my second largest position behind Palantir. At one point, it was my largest when Palantir was kind of retracing a little bit. So I don't know.
By the way, there was one other piece of news I just wanted to sneak in here, and it looks like Mynaric is actually making some progress. They announced, I believe it was 100 deliveries of their Mark 3.1 terminal. So potentially some good news there for Mynaric, although that acquisition has not yet closed. So just wanted Mott mention that. I did want to share it.
Cool. Good to see.
Okay, I think that pretty much does it for a absolutely drama-filled week. And once again, I can just say I'm very thankful for investing in a company being run by Sir Peter Beck, who would never get into drama like this. And it's very comforting from that standpoint. You don't have to worry about him crashing your stock price with a tweet or anything like that. So yeah, that's great. And of course, we wish Vince the best and his little kiddo there. Hopefully he gets over whatever's ailing him and it's not too serious. Any final thoughts for you guys before we sign off?
Nope. Just happy to hang out with you guys. Thank you to everyone for being in the audience. It's always good to hang out with you guys.
Yeah, the same. I was just kind of thinking, looking back, because somebody was posting about the not a space capsule announcement, and I was like, I'm lucky enough to have had the opportunity to chat with Peter about this particularly, and it just reminds me the support that you guys have given us that allows us to kind of have that visibility to the executive team, and people have been posting about how much each of these discords and private chats all kind of cumulatively have in terms of ownership within the organization. And it's just a reminder that I appreciate you guys showing up every week and allowing us to kind of chat. And as always, I'm an enthusiast, so I don't get everything right, but just excited to be here and be able to hang out with the guys and gals, in my case, in my channel every week, and be able to talk about a company that I really love and looking forward to holding for the next probably forever. I don't plan on having any sales unless it gets too crazy.
Yeah.
So
well said. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Do like and subscribe as always if you haven't already, and we will see you guys next week for the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you all.